Thanks very much for joining me. I wish I could cheer you up, but I can't. This is an unprecedented and dangerous moment in modern American history under a president who is increasingly unhinged and every day is moving us toward an authoritarian society with more and more power resting in his own hands. While the situation is frightening, I am absolutely confident that if we stand together and not let Trump and his friends divide us up, we can and will prevail. And the good news is that even more and more Republicans are understanding the folly of standing with Trump on both policy and political issues, as polls indicate that he is becoming more and more unpopular. Let's give Donald Trump credit for being straightforward. Last week in an interview with the New York Times, when asked about what he considers to be the limits on his own power in terms of international affairs, he said, quote, "Yeah, there is one thing, my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. I don't need international law," end quote. Trump says he doesn't need international law. And as a result, Trump believes he has the right to attack Venezuela without congressional approval, the right to threaten to go to war against Denmark, a long-standing NATO ally, in order to take over Greenland, and to threaten Mexico, Colombia, and even Canada. In other words, Trump is right. He has no respect for international law, which means that no other country on earth will have respect for international law. As a result, we will move to international anarchy, where any act of violence, for whatever reason that any country or terrorist group thinks is acceptable, will be done. And that is a horrific situation. But it is not just his disregard for international law. It is his contempt for the Constitution of the United States and for the rule of law here at home. He has continued to illegally rescind money that Congress has appropriated for everything from education to climate change. He has denied funding to states that committed the crime of voting against him in an election. He has attacked federal courts that ignored court orders. He has sent FBI agents into a Washington Post reporter's home. He has attacked media, which has not bent the knee toward him. He has withheld funding from universities whose curriculum he disagrees with. He is renaming federal buildings after himself. He is investigating his political opponents, including the conservative chairman of the Federal Reserve, multiple United States senators, and the Attorney General of the state of New York. And he is pressuring states to redraw congressional maps so that his favored candidates win. Donald Trump does not disagree with his opponents. He is attempting to destroy his opponents. In other words, plain and simple, when you add all of this up and more, Trump is undermining the foundations of American democracy and everything this country has stood for since its inception. And as bad as all of that is, we now have the situation in Minneapolis. An unarmed American citizen, Renee, was shot in the head by an ICE officer in broad daylight. Instead of demanding accountability for her killing, the Trump administration's first instinct was to lie, describing her as a domestic terrorist and offering the officer absolute immunity. This, by the way, as you may recall, is reminiscent of how the January 6th insurrectionists were redefined by Trump as peaceful protesters and pardoned. In other words, when people are trying to overthrow the government of the United States violently, they are peaceful protesters, they are pardoned. When a woman is sitting in her car and shot in the head, she is a domestic terrorist, and the guy who shoots her is pardoned. Instead of withdrawing ICE from the city of Minneapolis or reducing its presence because of this horrific act, the Trump administration has instead sent thousands more ICE agents into the city. It is now threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow him to bring the United States military into Minneapolis above and beyond the thousands of masked ICE agents who are already there. In other words, the Trump administration's response to peaceful protest is a military takeover of a major American city. This is not only an outrage unto itself, it sets a precedent for the U.S. military to be deployed domestically against Trump's perceived opponents. Meanwhile, in the midst of all of these moves toward authoritarianism, let's not forget that the billionaire class is getting richer and richer, while 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. Our healthcare system is collapsing, people can't afford housing, and grocery prices are still rising. 800,000 Americans are homeless in this country. Working families can't afford to feed their kids, and Trump is looking for a war with Denmark to annex Greenland. That is the world we are living in. So, where do we go from here? Just a few points. First, the American people are sick and tired of masked ICE agents shooting people, pulling them, dragging them from their cars, arresting and detaining children, and deporting people who have lived and worked peacefully in this country for decades. The American people want, and Congress must deliver, comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Second, we must continue in every legal and nonviolent way possible to oppose Trump's authoritarianism. I'm going to do all that I can here in the United States Senate. People have got to do all that they can in their own communities. Third, we must focus on the midterm elections next November. If we can defeat Republicans in the House and in the Senate, we can, to a very significant degree, slow down Trump's authoritarianism and put an end to his efforts to undermine American democracy. These are dangerous times, but we must never forget this. Real change has never come from the top on down. It has always come from ordinary people standing together, protesting, organizing, and fighting for justice. Democracy is not something that we inherit. It is something that we fight for. And if we do that, if we stay engaged, if we stay united, we will not only defeat authoritarianism and oligarchy, we will build a country that finally works for all of us, not just the few. Thank you very much.